Howdy folks, welcome back to our final review for October. Last time we took a look at the ooey gooey evil of The Stuff. So with a taste of that still in our mouths, I figured I'd end things on a more artistic note, with the acclaimed French horror film Eyes Without a Face, coming right up here on Schlocktober. So, let's start with some basic info, shall we? Eyes Without a Face, as mentioned before, is a French horror film that was released in France back in 1960. Similar to Bram Stoker's Dracula, this film was based on a book that went by the same title. It technically has a French name, but I'll spare you all my terrible pronunciation and just keep saying Eyes Without a Face. The film was directed by Georges Franjou and produced by Jules Bourquin. The film stars actors such as Pierre Brasseur, Alida Valli, and Juliette Méniel. We will discuss these actors and their characters a bit more later on. Finally, the 90-minute film was distributed by, and please forgive me for butchering this, La Compagnie Cinématographique de France. I'm from southern Indiana, folks. This is difficult for me to say. The film was actually released dubbed here in the US back in 1962, but for the purposes of this video, I chose to watch the original French version that was unedited. With all that said, what exactly is this film all about? Well, to quote from IMDb, a surgeon causes an accident which leaves his daughter disfigured and goes to extreme lengths to give her a new face. Basically, the story is about a doctor who kidnaps women and then cuts their faces off in an attempt to give his daughter a new look. It is exactly as morbid as you expect. What is especially shocking is just how graphic this film is for the time. Apparently, French reviewers at the time of its release were overall quite critical of the film. Not just because of how grisly some of the sights were, but also because of the overall pacing and acting that was showcased in the film. Now, in my opinion, I think that the overall story was rather engaging. But it cannot be denied that I also felt that it meandered or plodded along a bit slowly at times. It's a bit like the inverse of The Stuff, where I felt like maybe some scenes should have been trimmed to give the film a bit more of a faster running time. Another thing that I did like is that the film does a lot of showing over telling. There isn't a single bit of wasted dialogue in this film, which helps add to the tension. And usually, when characters aren't speaking, they are doing something. But again, going back to the meandering complaint, sometimes characters do spend a bit too long doing something. Unless it's surgery. Dear Lord, that scene takes forever to get through and I love it. And can I just say that the ending was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in a horror film? It was very poetic, I think. Which, I mean, hey, this was based off of a book, so I expect a bit of fancy symbolism going on. But yeah, overall, the general story was solid, and the characters really helped drive it home. I would say that this film has some of the most engaging characters I've seen for a 1960s horror film. In particular, I was enthralled by Edith Schaub, who played Christiane Genesir, the woman who is without a face. For most of the film, she is seen wearing a mask, so she has to let her voice, eyes, and body language carry the bulk of her performance. She's positively fantastic. The way she seems to glide across the screen and stare right into the soul of the audience is both bone-chilling and tragic at the same time. I'm sure she probably got this a lot when she was alive, but I still want to say that Edith was a masterclass of talent. I'll definitely have to see more films that she was in. Of course, I also have to give a shout out to Pierre Brasseur as Dr. Genesir. By far one of my favorite villains in a horror film. What's great is that he doesn't set out to be evil. I don't think, at least. He's misguided and believes what he is doing is for the own good of his daughter. And at the same time, his actions cause irreparable harm to innocent people, and to an extent, Christiane. Just a great performance all around. And there are other kind things I could say for the rest of the cast, but I don't want this video to be any longer than it is. So I'll just say that everyone in this film set out and performed very well. Continuing on, one of the big perks of black and white films is that they make sets, vehicles, and costumes look really sharp, and make shadows seem harsher thanks to clever use of lighting. There's something that's just so classy about black and white, and it's hard for me to describe it. As you can see from the footage in the background, I think it looks great. It really adds to the horror vibe that's going on. I wonder if I'm just biased since I'm a fan of the old Universal monster films? Another element that was small but important were the effects. Overall, there were very few effects that were used, but when they were, you better believe that they were very necessary. I think whoever did the makeup work did a fantastic job for the time. And there's one scene in particular that they excelled at that will make your stomach turn even by today's standards. Now finally, we have the score for the film. For this movie, Maurice Jarre composed the music, and it is great as well. There's a haunting melody that plays throughout the film that helps set the stage for the macabre events that are to follow. Overall, it's just a very excellent score that deserves to be heard. With all that said, would I recommend Eyes Without a Face? And my answer would be, if you are looking for a horror movie that's maybe fancier than you're used to, you should see it. I know I've played up a certain scene for its grotesque quality, but it also serves a purpose as well. Eyes Without a Face is a unique film that has opened my eyes to the world of French cinema. In the future, I know that I will definitely be checking out more French-made horror films, and hopefully those too will be provocative in how they present themselves. And with that, I would like to thank you all for watching this year's installments of Schlocktober. It wasn't easy deciding which 4 films to cover, and I hope that I selected a decent variety for you all. The main point of these reviews is to highlight just how varied and amazing the horror genre is. This is one of my favorite times of the year, and I am just so thankful that I could share it with all of you. I should mention, however, that this will not be the only time that I talk about horror films on the channel. In fact, I've been getting into full moon films recently, so maybe expect some reviews here in the next few months. But with all that said, if you like this video, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And leave some suggestions down below for films that you think I'd like to see. I always love seeing what folks have to say. And so I once again wish you all a wonderful day.
It was late one night in the castle of the Chicken McNuggets.
What are you making?
Sauce. We're using my mummy's recipe.
Mummy,
This better be good.
It'll be great.
Does your daddy have a recipe?
Now you can get McDonald's Happy Meal pails for
Halloween!
There's a pumpkin pail, a witch, and a ghost that glows in the dark. You can get a different one each week until